Hey guys, this is Mike. I'm at my friend B Radd's shop here today in Sparks, Nevada. This is where we rebuilt the trailer, if you remember from those old videos. Anyway, B Radd's a pretty great mechanic and very creative guy, and he can do everything from metal fabrication to engine work to upholstery, I just found out today. Anyway, something a little different for you today. We're gonna go check out his latest project, which if you follow b.radd.davidson on Instagram, you might be curious about. Let's go see what he's got.
Well, my name is Brad Davidson, and I've got a fun little shop next to my buddy Harry Wagner's place called B Radd's Customs, or BRC for short. It is just a group of guys having a good time. I'm actually retired law enforcement, so this is my, this is like the dream retirement, right? So what we do around here is we have a lot of fun. We have friends around, and we build cool stuff. So this behind me is actually a 1940 Mercury. It started its life in California as a four-door, a custom car builder, and I'm not exactly sure the history of who that person is, but we've actually had contact him with on Instagram after we started this project. So it was a four-door. They converted it to a two-door. So it's had a lot of custom work done on it. It looks a little awkward sometimes because you're like, what car did this come from? But this is actually several different cars put into one car. So there's been 4 different people that have had their hands on it. So it's had a lot of love. There's spots that look like there still needs to have some love on it. And then other spots we just needed to get stuff fixed just because of, you know, usually not everybody knows everything. So we might as well start this baby off from the front. So when it got here, this was actually pulled out of a field from Silver Springs, which is right next to Lahontan. So it had been sitting outside for God knows how long. So when we got it, there was no lights. There was no turn indicators. That was pretty much the only thing was on it was the hood and the body. We found these in the trunk, and they're just a teardrop style. I don't think these are actually the 40 Merc ones because there's been a lot of body work done, but they're super cool. We started looking at this thing going, what theme, you know, what can we do with it? And the owner, my friend Steve, was like, hey, it's gonna be a rat rod. Let's just make it ratty and put all sorts of different stuff on it. Well, I don't mind, you know, doing different, you know, builds, but this one, there was just something about it, super unique. So we started off with doing like an aviation theme. So like bullet headlights, because that's what matches the hubcaps. And then these cars back in the day, you know, they pretty much mimicked airplanes. That's when they started doing it. The 50s, of course, is when they really get into it. So to start off at the front, we did all the lights, we did the turn signals, and then once we got the theme, he started hooking up some of the good stuff. We actually got that actual training mortar round. His son is in the military, and that is some of the surplus stuff that he has gotten. We made this was one of the last things that we fabbed up. We TIG welded a custom made little bracket for it. And then in the engine compartment, well, when it first came here, it wouldn't even barely run. It had a broom handle for a hood prop, so pretty much we started with the simple stuff. It had wood motor mounts. Yeah, oak though, Mike, oak. It's, you know, if it were just regular Doug fir, it's a no-go, but I guess oak is the ticket. So we wanted to bump that up a notch. So we got the good motor mounts in it. This motor is a 1956 Nailhead, Buick Nail Head. Now we're still trying to do a little work to see what cubic inch it is. There's numerous different sizes of Buick Nail Heads, but they're super cool, very sought after in the 50s. So we had to go through it. We had to reseal some stuff. It was leaking pretty bad. We did a little cool accent piece too. So we actually scored a big old shell casing from a howitzer from a friend of ours that does work up at some of the ski resorts for the avalanche control. We actually converted that one into an air cleaner. So we did a custom made part on the bottom, so that way it'll actually hook the radius of the shell casing. It's all sealed on the inside. And then we made the fastener on the inside with a bolt that goes into the carburetor. The reason why it's offset is because these things are like 20 pounds, and they're 20 pounds like back here. So we had to offset it because I didn't want to tear the threads out of the poor carburetor if it was in the center. The wiring was also shot. The whole car, the wiring was garbage. So we actually completely rewired the whole car. We put headlight relays and all that stuff. Got a fuse block out in the front. All the stuff that a modern car would have, we made sure it had. I have always really wanted to get into sheet metal work. Well, our latest purchase was a bead roller. So I always wanted to do it. This was our actual first sheet metal work, and I was pumped about it. We did our homework, we practiced a lot, so it turned out pretty awesome. There's a whole bunch of it in here. With the bomber theme, you gotta go with the bomber mouth. I think it originates from the Spitfire, and then a lot of the B-52s during World War II ended up having this bomber mouth on there. So we had to throw some of that accent. It kind of wraps everything together. The top is still pretty much field fresh. It still needs some work, but you know what? My buddy Steve wants to get this thing and start driving it. We also did some cool custom exhaust tips. Those tips are aluminum, and they're actually for towing gliders. And the gliders are actually drone gliders for training. So these connectors are actually shear connectors in case the person who's learning how to fly the unpowered drones or the drone gliders, if they get out of shape with the tow plane, it doesn't take the tow plane down with it. So they're pretty much like one-off stuff. A lot of the stuff we really try to do is just one-off. We started with the interior was gone. The seats were, it was horrible. There was rats living in it. So imagine the old seats with all that cotton tufting and everything. Holy cow, it was a mess. There was no carpet in it, no nothing. So we actually started with the door sheet metal, and then we started making these panels, found a new front seat that was a little bit narrower and sat a little lower because of the chop top. So this is actually an S10, I think it's like a 92 S10 pickup seat that we ended up recovering. And then we actually rebuilt the rear seat and recovered that. And then simple stuff, we just made a little carpet kit for it, cleaned it up, and a lot of paint. So it wouldn't be, 10 different cars glued together. This upholstery started off with doing the top panels, and it's like door board that you can get from your local upholstery shop. It's waterproof because we knew that we weren't going to put any windows in it. We started doing stitching with just red velvet. I thought any cool old rat rod has got to have some red velvet. So we did the diamond shape, and we kind of made it to where, because your arm up here, you don't want to have red velvet there. You're just going to end up getting, the red velvet look like crap. So we did that, and then the little chrome tip fasteners, just something to hold this on. This lower panel is actually the first panel that we did with the new bead roller and the shear and all the sheet metal stuff. So we kind of incorporated this propeller-ish looking, symbol. There's another one that is actually on the glove box. It kind of pulls it all together. So that's what we tried to do, is that aviation theme. So you'll see this shape through the car a few different spots. When it was brought in, there was a couple parts that were cut in a box. It was just metal in a box. We actually started piecing those together. So the one piece is actually where it was either like the ashtray or something in that top part. So we didn't go crazy with the body work. We wanted to just fill in the spots with tack welds, and then the center part with the two instruments, we actually recut that on our plasma machine. We had the basic measurements from the piece that was existing, and then we actually plasmaed the two holes out. So we wanted to give Steve a few gauges. The factory gauges are so old and they're so difficult to try to find that those I just got all the lights and everything on. So like when he's driving down the road at night, it just kind of looks cool. But we have the super important ones. It's a one-wire alternator system, so as long as it's running, we've pretty much got power. We wanted to make sure that we had oil, and we had to make sure that it wasn't overheating, so we did coolant. So those were the two that we put on there, and we can add more We also pretty much tried to fill every hole that was in the dash. So all the switches are all, you know, the turn signal ones are all on the lower part of the dash. And then we actually have a push start on this side with the integrated turn signals. We integrated all these bullet lights into the back too. It had elongated light bezels in the back. We tried to find like the factory light bezels, but the way this thing had been chopped and cut, they actually weren't the factory ones. So what I wanted to do is just something really simple. So to keep with that bullet theme, we just went and picked up some bullet lights. I stacked them in the opening, and it kind of kept it a little bit rough, just to kind of match the rest of the car. Did a simple license plate mount, nothing too crazy. But the good thing is he's got brake lights and turn signals and everything that a modern car has, you know, so we can drive around. Yeah, so the prized possession here, the piece de resistance, we actually custom made this tank. It started out as just an 8-gallon acid container. It is a stainless steel cylinder, and we were just gonna kind of mount it in the back sideways. And I'm like, man, I'm not getting the feeling for it. So started doing a little bit of looking around and some, you know, we just kind of round robined it, talked to everybody, and we were like, I think we're gonna have to make that look like a bomb. So we did a couple iterations, like, is it gonna lay down flat or is it gonna stand up? So I'm like, it should look like it was just like plunked in there. So we actually cut the hole through the floor, supported the hole underneath of it, and then it's got a clear sight level on the side, so that way it actually does have a fuel gauge in it, and he'll be able to tell. And yeah, we did all the sheet metal up top for the wings and stuff to make it look like a bomb, but just thought that was that cool last little, you know, piece, that little nugget that tied it all together. So I think it turned out pretty friggin' sweet. We've gotten a lot of comments on Instagram and stuff, so pretty cool.